Rohit Sharma, Ajika Rahane, are their heads on the chopping block for the next Test match? And Virat Kohli, a few question marks about his captaincy on Ask Hoggy on Hogg's blog. Okay, let's go right into the first question. This is from Siddhant Chauhan. Now, do you see Rohit Sharma being dropped for the next Test? No, I don't see him being dropped for the next Test. Remember, against South Africa, just of late, he made 300s and one of them a double 100. The only issue I have with Rohit Sharma is that they've got a good attack against his technique. He does play away from his body. Anderson swings the ball away, but Jofra Archer also gets that movement, but with extra bounce and pace. Sharma's got to learn to leave the ball outside off stump. The second innings, he just got an absolute beauty from Leach. Very unplayable delivery, but against the left arm off spinner, he's got to have better footwork as well. He's just a little bit lazy sometimes with that footwork against spin. And I've noticed that every now and then in T20 cricket when I played against him. But he's a phenomenal batsman. Don't write him off yet. I'm expecting a big score in the second Test match from him. Right, second question. Shrujan Epoch. Would Kuldeep Yadav's inclusion make a significant difference to India's chances in the second Test match? Look, with Ashwin playing and no Jadeja, this is a big headache because you have Sundar taking that second spinning option with a player that can handle the bat, trying to do that role of Jadeja. So you've got two right arm off spinners there. You need one spinner to take the ball away from the bat. Now, Kuldeep Yadav is a left arm leg spinner. He also brings the ball back into the right-handers. So you've got three bowlers bringing the ball back into the right-handers, which is an issue. But I think with the way that Nadeem bowled in that first Test match, and if Axar Patel is not fit, I think you will have to go with Kuldeep Yadav in this second Test match against England. The only issue I have there, and I said it on the live the other night, is that he doesn't get that extra bounce. And with the likes of Folkes, who's coming in to back up Butler, who's a very good sweeper of the ball, and Joe Root, Kuldeep Yadav will have his work cut out there. And I think to counteract those two particular players, he's got to have square fields and make those two players charge down the wicket and try and hit through off stump. Where he's wrong and will come into play for the little stumping. Okay, third question. This is from Parkashite Kashyap. And you were on my live the other night too, with some very good questions as well. Thanks for joining me again. Your thoughts on Virat Kohli's captaincy in the first Test match? Look, he was up against it. He didn't win the toss, so the conditions weren't favoured for India throughout this Test match. I think Root had a great game plan against the Indian spinners. He was always looking to sweep and use his feet. He never allowed them to have their line and length or control the line and length. Root was controlling the game. So if you look back at it, the moment or the period of the game where England took it away from India was that little session after lunch. Bumrah, Shami, as well as Ashwin were bowling to Sibley and Root. The fast bowlers were all over Joe Root. He was edging, a little few inside edges here. It looked as though he was going to get out. Ashwin came around the wicket to Sibley, and all of a sudden Sibley's footwork was out of order. And it looked as though they were going to get a couple of breakthroughs through that 11 over period. They didn't. Then Kohli went to the two backup spinners, and that's where Root and Sibley took the game away. Probably, if I look back at that particular period, after the Sharma spell, he might have been able to bring Bumrah back just for one short, sharp spell of 3 overs just to see if he could continue getting the breakthrough. But that's hindsight. Other than that, England just outplayed India in that first innings and got a good lead. And the batting conditions just were too tough for all batsmen in those final 2 days. So don't have a crack at Virat Kohli's captaincy. But a very good question there, Parikashit. Parakashite, sorry. What is the reason behind Ajinkya Rahane's inconsistency? This is from Shazvat Awasti, I think it is. Awasti. Right. Look, if you look at his record, he's had a lot of scores that are in single figures or between 10 and 20. He reminds me of a Sean Marsh here in Australia, another mate of mine. So both of these batsmen I've just mentioned are very close mates of mine. So that tells me that he's a nervous starter. Somehow he's got to control those nerves, just get to 20, and once he gets to 20, if he can just push the singles for 20, taking deep breaths, then he goes on with it a lot of the time. So getting over those nerves in the initial part of his innings is a huge problem. And it's a surprise that he has those nerves, because when he captains the team, he's so in control. And he carries the other team with him, and he seems to bat a lot better as well, which, is a bit of an issue with leadership roles in the team as well. But you can't really give Virat Kohli the flick and bring Ajinkya Rahane in, because Virat Kohli's done a good job. He's got a good record. Now, why are Indians not being able to convert their 50s into 100s? This is from Evel Slasher. Look, if you're just talking about the first test match, I think we've just got to walk away from it and move on to the second test match, because, again, as I mentioned earlier, they had the rough end of the stick when they had to go out in the bat. It was tougher conditions for them, and I think early on, the top 3 or 4 for India as well were a little bit lazy with their footwork in that first innings, just because they've been on their feet for 2 and a bit days. So I think they'll look at that and make sure they keep themselves hydrated, try and keep themselves as fresh as they possibly can if they have to bat in a tough scenario like that as well. So it was more them being worn out in the first innings that they struggled, but in the second innings it was just too tough, and you could just see England taking away the game with the way the pitch was holding up. So yeah, it's a little bit tough for them, guys. But a very good question there. The Indian spinners bowled a lot of no balls. As a spinner, how would you address this issue? This is from Austin DeCuna. Now, this is a very good question. A lot of spinners are very close to that front line with their back heel. I don't know why. We all do it. It's just a natural thing. But now that they've gone to the third umpire to call the no balls, you've got that camera on the foot. You don't have the human eye from behind the stumps, because the human eye, remember, I'll just get my computer up there. You can have the foot over that front line. So that's the front line. You can have your foot up in the air with the heel up in the air, but that heel behind the line in the air is not a no ball. Okay? So umpires give the bowlers a lot of leeway when they don't have the DRS to call the no balls. So they've been getting away with it, and now they're not, and that's why we've seen a lot more no balls being called in all the test matches that have been played over the last week. Bangladesh, Pakistan, as well as India. So to address it, they've just got to pull their marker back just an inch, and then they'll be behind the line. But that inch sometimes can put you off your line of length up the other end as well. So they've got to be careful with that as well. But very good question, Austin. I like it. 3 things that can make India win the second test match. This is from Sacham Saragi. I hope I said that right. Thanks very much for joining me. And thanks everyone for these wonderful questions. But 3 things that India can change to win the second test match. Firstly, Virat Kohli win the toss. Get the better of the conditions. But secondly, the backup spinners keep the pressure on. That's where they lost the first test match. And the experienced batters of Rohit Sharma and Ajinkya Rahane have to step up. Now, it's going to be a good second test match. Let's all get glued to the TV, because it's all on the line. England have got a chance to get in the World Test Championship. India have to win 2 test matches and draw the next one to make sure they have a place guaranteed in that World Test Championship. But if those scenarios don't happen, well, I'm afraid the baggy green from Australia might be able to get in there as well, but I don't think so. I think India are going to win 2 of the next 3 test matches, and maybe one of them's a draw, so don't get too hard. But make sure you get your friends on board. And again, thank you very much for everyone subscribing. 100,000 followers. I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying this test series. There's plenty of cricket to come. Let's lick it up.